I'm Ed Elrod.
I'm Carol Elrod.
We ended up going to Monseratt because a minister of a Methodist church in Indiana asked me to go with a group that he was putting together to help rebuild houses on Monseratt after Hurricane Hugo decimated the island, which it did. So we went to Monseratt, a crew of 12 of us, and we worked on houses and rebuilt the parsonage and things like that. Then we went back for a week the following year just on holiday, and then we went back the following year for another week. And we just looked at houses. We weren't going to buy anything. We just were curious as to what the prices were. A realtor that we had contacted said, "I've got a house for sale," and we ended up buying it and going 4 winters in a row. And that's what we basically did every year. We left the day after Thanksgiving and stayed in Monseratt until the middle of May approximately.
What drew us there was that we loved the people. That was one thing. The weather, of course, was another thing because Indiana is a little icy in the winter time.
It was not third world, but it was not real modern either.
The water system there was really precarious, particularly where we lived. The water pipes were PVC pipes, and they were too small, for one thing, and they were laid just under the surface of the grass because it never froze, of course, and people had animals which they tethered all around the place, and they would drive a stake and you'd have a geyser and then it would take all day for them to figure out where the problem was and fix it. And then I don't remember how it happened that the water tank was up on the hill, and it was a gravity thing, so that when all the water drained out, you didn't have anything and nobody warned you. So we had a bucket of water all the time in the kitchen so that if we needed to cook with it, but we had a swimming pool, so it was an endless supply if you boiled it. But that was primitive.
When you went to the grocery to buy groceries for dinner, you didn't plan the dinner in advance because you didn't know what the grocery would have. You went to the grocery, found out what they had, and then planned the dinner. And that was very true. You might go in and find beautiful frozen steaks, or they might have absolutely no meat at all. Depends upon, it all came in by ship, and it had to go through customs, and if you went in to look for something, I need some aspirins. Well, we have a shipment of aspirins, but they're in customs, and they've been there 3 weeks. We'll have aspirins maybe next week. We first realized that we had a problem with the volcano when they started reporting swarms of little tiny earthquakes, like 450 in a day, not unlike Yellowstone and other places, I might add. And those earthquakes got bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden, in July of 1995, a hole opened up in the side of the mountain and huge rocks blew out. And it got worse and worse and worse, and they were afraid. We were only 2.5 miles down the hill from the volcano, and they were afraid that it would start coming down the hill with detritus. And so sometimes we got evacuated 2 times. And the next year, the pyroclastic flow came down the hill on June the 25th at 1:10 p.m. and set fire to our house and a lot of other things too. Killed 19 people.
19 people.
It was really sad. The people that got killed, some of them were people who just simply refused to evacuate. But one man was killed because he went back to his house. He had forgotten his wallet, and he went back to his house to get his wallet and got fried. A woman came in and didn't know anything about the evacuation and went to visit her mother, and she got fried. So it was really very sad. We have one friend that helped take care of our house when we weren't there, and he saw the pyroclastic flow coming, and he scrambled uphill. He climbed a hill, almost a mountain, because the pyroclastic flow, if you see pictures of it coming down a mountain, they always go down the valley. They flow like water. And so he went up the hill and escaped it.
When it first started and blew rocks out of this vent in the side, we were staying in a bed and breakfast in London, and we had gotten very familiar with the woman who ran the B&B, and she knew that we had been to Monseratt, and so she cut a little tiny clipping out of the newspaper and put it, this was a former house, put it on the mantelpiece so we'd be sure to see it. And then some of the people were in England as the indigenous Monseratians. A lot of them went to England anyway and had family there. So one particular woman was in London at the same time, and I don't remember whether she called us but she got in touch.
We called her.
Okay, and she told us what had happened because she was in telephone contact with people who were there.
We were watching a National Geographic special in Michigan, visiting a friend to see what was going on, and they had a helicopter, the National Geographic had a helicopter flying over the area just after the event occurred, and they happened to get a picture of our house burning, which we called a friend in Indianapolis who worked for RCA and said, can you tape that for us when it plays in Indianapolis? Because there was a 1-hour time difference. And so we asked him to tape it for us, and then he gave us a still photograph of our house burning up.
Our friend in Michigan said when the big event occurred and our house burning was on television, he said, Ed, that's your house. Because he had been there 3 times to visit us down there.
We didn't recognize it from the aerial view, but it was our house. We could, I could see the swimming pool behind the house and the road, and it was easily identifiable after we watched the copy that we got from our friend at RCA. Well, there was something left of our house after the pyroclastic flow went by. The concrete block walls, I'm sure, were there, although we don't have a picture of it. But 3 months later, another pyroclastic flow came down the hill and went much further, buried our house, buried the Bethel Methodist Church, so you can't even find it. It doesn't exist anymore. There's about 40 feet of ash, and it wiped out the airport and went all the way to the sea, and there just wasn't anything left. As a matter of fact, the area where our house was looks like a big moonscape with huge boulders and ash, and that's it. And if a pyroclastic flow comes down the hill while you're there, you are cooked because it travels 100 miles an hour and it can be as high as 1,000 degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit, Celsius.
So there was closure there. You know, people always talk about having closure. Well, we got it, a dose of reality. We aren't going back there. It was going to be a peaceful retirement, but your plans change, you know, and you have to roll with the punches.
A funny story, I think, about one of my friends saw the picture of our house burning, and he just casually said, Ed, I think you left your lights on. Because that's what it looks like till you realize flames are coming out of the roof. In the meantime, if you're interested in purchasing a 1/4 acre on a Caribbean island, I'd be glad to sell you one cheaply.